Details now. In a recent interview in a Monitor television program, Femi Falana, a prominent human rights lawyer and senior advocate in Nigeria, voiced his criticism of the federal government's 5 billion naira fuel subsidy removal palliatives. Falana labeled these measures diversionary and a waste, asserting they fail to address the root cause of the nation's economic challenges. During the interview, Falana underscored the importance of tackling the underlying issues that have contributed to Nigeria's economic woes. He pinpointed the dollarization of the country's economy as the crux of the problem, urging political leaders to confront these fundamental concerns. The senior advocate of Nigeria contended that the interventions implemented by the government were temporary solutions that lacked substantial impact. He emphasized the need for a comprehensive strategy to address the economic challenges rather than relying on short-term measures that may not yield lasting results. The backdrop to this criticism is a recent revelation by Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State, who disclosed that a sum of 5 billion naira had been disbursed to the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory following the National Economic Council meetings. This financial allocation was intended to alleviate the effects of the fuel subsidy removal, which has sparked nationwide debate and protest. Falana remarks align with the broader sentiment within Nigeria's legal and intellectual circles, where concerns have been raised about the long-term impact of government policies on the nation's economy. Meanwhile, Dr. Mahdi Shehu, a political activist, has claimed that President Bola Tinubu's recent appointments in the Southwest are reminiscent of creating an Oduduwa Republic. He explained during an interview on a Monitor television program, Arise News, that he sees little distinction between President Tinubu and Buhari. According to him, the Southwest region now holds significant influence across various sectors due to these new ministerial appointments. He believes that President Tinubu's appointments are quite similar to what President Buhari has done in the past. He said, and I quote, "Imagine if you had a puzzle and two pieces fit together perfectly." That's how he feels about these appointments. The Southwest now has a lot of important roles, like the person in charge of the CBN, which is like the bank of the country, and many other roles in banking, finance, and the economy. It's like they've been given a lot of important keys, end quote. Dr. Shehu also gave few examples. He talks about banks, money-related places, and even the ministry that handles the country's finances. He says almost everything from the sea, marine to power, transportation, and even the oil business is affected. He adds that President Tinubu also has a role similar to being the boss of the oil business and even the overall president of the country. He also disclosed that these appointments have made the Southwest region very powerful, almost like creating a new Oduduwa Republic. He says also that this is all because he feels President Buhari and President Tinubu are not paying enough attention to the feelings of the people. Now let's take a listen to what Dr. Mahdi had to say concerning this via the live television interview earlier on today.
Once I perused through the list of the ministerial nominees and their portfolios, what came to my mind is that, yes, a perfectly executed civilian coup. The central character who plays the coup is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Other accomplices of the tribunal are the hidden vice president, and the hidden vice president is nobody other than BC Akande. Other members of the coup, civilian coup plot, are Bajabia Mila, the vice president, open vice president and also chief of staff to the president. I could see the hand of the permanent secretary in the villa. I could see the hand of AT, SSA, and SSAs in the villa. These are the people who executed this coup. Where was the plot? It was in London. You could remember that during the election campaign, Bola Tinubu, along with his kitchen cabinet, went to London and were eating in a restaurant. And he gave them the formula for winning election. He said, snatch power, grab power, and run away with power. And he grabbed it, he snatched it, and he ran away with it. One of the conditions is that once you snatch power, you grab power, and you run away with it, you must strangulate other parties. You must weaken them, and you must make them feel asphyxiated. You must push down their throats. Your agenda to a point of no return. And now I'm finally pretend that all is well. This is the setting of the ministerial nominees and their portfolio. Perfectly, neatly couched.
Dr. Madishu, thank you.
To do is to look at the circumstances of his coming. Serial objection, serial misgivings, serial exasperations. Many people, 14 million people said, we don't like you. There are so many questions surrounding himself, surrounding his education, surrounding his personality, surrounding his trade, surrounding his genealogy. If he had factored all this into consideration, he would have acted differently. But he decided to act in the same way, in the same manner, in the same style, at the same speed. We are going to say it very clear now. For example, look at what goes to the southwest. Number one, CBN. Because NFLA is under charge now, they will never appoint a CBN governor, and this guy who is acting as the CBN governor is from the southwest. All commercial banks, all financial institutions, 90% of microfinance banks, Shippers Council, NNITT, National Inland Waterways, communications, under communications has taken away NCC, NIDA, Galaxy Backbone, NESCOPSAT, NIPOST, Ministry of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Accountant General, Auditor General, NDIC, all MDEs, marine and blue economy, power, solid mineral, transport, petroleum, justice. In addition to being the senior minister of petroleum, in addition to being the president, in addition to calling the last shot, everything is on his table. Now, he took also health, environmental ecology. Total of 8 senior ministers, 2 junior ministers. If you have a mental picture of what happened and what he gave to the Southwest, it's like you're having an Ododo Republic in the making, paving way for the Republic of Biafra, and forcing the North to think, okay, let us be annexed by Niger Republic or Cameroon. It's a matter of Buhari's insensitivity repeated. You go to the southeast. What you have in southeast is similar to what you have in Matthew chapter 15, 26, 28, which says, it is not right to take the children's bread and give it to the dogs. The woman said, Christ, yes, Lord, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Jesus said, Master, move and you have faith. This is how southwest we are given, southeast we are given the crumbs. Ministry for Work senior, Women Affairs senior, Labor junior, senior trade, senior innovation and technology. Put together, these ministries are not up to Nigeria Port Authority.
Now, that was Dr. Shehu Mahdi during a monitored interview recently. We just gave you a playback of that. I actually have Mr. Tochukwu Usuwan here. Good morning, or rather, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being with me in the studio. It is vital for us to actually have these conversations. We had a conversation yesterday on the World News at 12, where a couple of persons actually feel that the cabinet of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, some persons think that it is more sidelined to a particular ethnic group. Now, Dr. Mahdi is saying that the group, or rather the composition of his cabinet, is more of the Southwest. He literally called it an Oduduwa Republic. He also mentioned that the vital sectors, which is the CBN, that is the CBN, which is the Bank of Nigeria, petroleum resource, electricity, these vital sectors were given to persons from the Southwest, and that he is basically repeating what his predecessor did, and that he thought that Tinubu's administration will be different from the administration of his predecessor. Are you of the same school of thought?
Yes, I agree with Dr. Shehu Mahdi in many respects, for one thing. But the Tinubu himself has said that he will continue from where Buhari stopped from. So there's no surprise as far as Tinubu acting like towing the line of Buhari, because he had professed that already. Yes, it's not an Oduduwa Republic in that sense. I disagree with that. There are 10 Southwesterners in the administration of 45 ministers. It's quite a disproportionate number, but it's not cannot say it's essentially an Oduduwa Republic. And I agree with him also when he talked about the crumbs going to the southeast.
However, he made a vow to have a cabinet of technocrats, right, that has proved recently it seemed hollow, based on what a couple of analysts and Nigerians have actually talked about concerning the formation of his cabinet. He called them their more political operators, including former state governors and nominees of political godfathers. They actually dominate the cabinet, and of course the nominees have not attracted universal acclaim. There are a few acknowledged experts in the team, while other persons were given sensitive portfolios. They attracted apprehension, not hope of better days ahead. But the question I want to ask you is this: the president exercised his constitutional prerogative to appoint ministers, albeit quite late. The Senate, as usual, they did their own job of screening, which a couple of persons consider to be terrible. And Nigerians, they say, at the end of the day, regardless, must actually live with the choices of both arms of government, that is the National Assembly and the executive. Now, unfortunately, as things may go, we are beginning to hear a couple of feedback concerning the president's constituents, that is the cabinet that he has formed. And persons have actually said that the role he is playing is not a good one in representing his government in a good light as the days are coming ahead. And he said also pre-campaign that he was going to kick the ground running, but rather a lot of persons say he didn't kick the ground running. He actually did not sprint. Is actually on a tortoise, on a tortoise pace. But my question to you is, a lot of persons have asked, why is Dr. Mahdi complaining when former President Muhammadu Buhari did the same? And the Southeasterners, why are they complaining when they did not show support or did not vote for him during the elections? Is it not ideal that he rather chose more persons from his ethnic group?
Well, it's not about showing support for him. Some Southerners showed support for him. Of the governors, I think 3 of them were his loyalists. So some Southeasterners showed support for him
at the political level, but not on the streets, like in terms of representation.
He is not a president of those that showed support for him. He should be a president of all Nigerians. There must be this sensitivity on his part to as far as our heterogeneity is concerned. Nigeria is a very heterogeneous country, and you have to be sensitive to that. So your cabinet, which is a reflection of who you are, must respect this diversity. And this cabinet has not respected the diversity. He did not hit the ground running as he promised, which was very surprising to most of us. For a man that has been in politics for such a long time, he's been governor for 2 terms. He was leader of APC, and he said, Emiloko, it's my turn, it's my turn. So we believe that not just that it was his turn, but he was also prepared to get the job done. But evidently, he has not shown that preparedness. Government of inclusivity that he promised during the campaign is not being made manifest in his cabinet makeup, in his ministerial makeup.
All right, let's a couple of presidential candidates of the Labour Party, which is actually, one of the lawyers quoted the Constitution saying an open justice, and that's concerning the Billboard quagmire, where Peter Obi, the representative of the Labour Party, is saying if the judiciary does not have anything to hide, why are they concerned about the Billboard being pulled down? If the current administration has nothing to hide, why are they concerned about, why is that kind of concentration on bringing down the Billboard? The Billboard literally says that we've known in the past where judges get financial inducement or material inducement or possibly other infrastructures and establishments, to their name, if certain things are tilted to a certain person or a certain activity that is already at the court of law. Do you think that in any way, based on what the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria disclosed, that they did more harm than good by asking that Billboard be brought down, because they stipulated it was going to be inciting breach of public peace, and that there is a lot of pressure on the judiciary? The judiciary themselves have actually come out to complain recently that a couple of Nigerians, especially the lawyers, some prominent lawyers, usually like to prefer bribes to them, either financially or otherwise, especially from whoever it is they're represented. They complain vehemently, like the judge in Kaduna. Do we see any of that taking place at the tribunal? That's one. And then 2, what if the tribunal's judgment does not toe the line of a lot of people as they want? But then what should Nigerians do next?
Yeah, let me first of all make a point. Dr. Shehu Madi, when he said that it was a coup. A coup is an illegitimate takeover of a government. It does not have to be violent. So you have civilian coup.
But do you think Dr. Madi is saying this because of the composition of the president's cabinet that does not favor his region?
I don't know why he's saying it, but it's a fact. It's a coup, because what transpired on February 25th was not a free and fair. February 25th of this year was not a free and fair election.
Why didn't Dr. Madi say the same during the previous administration, criticizing President Buhari's administration?
I can't speak for him.
So don't you think that his response and reaction is more ethnically inclined rather than being objective?
It may have been, but there's a universal fact in this case. And the universal fact is that it was a civilian coup that brought Tinubu to power. And then the case is being contested in court. So we are not surprised that he's trying to undermine the process. There may have been attempts to influence the judges. There are attempts to maybe induce them financially. So when the Billboard came, all eyes are on the judiciary. It rattled some individuals because of their psychological baggage in this civilian, associated with this civilian coup. So pulling down those adverts, those billboards, did more harm to the government, to the prayer rule against him. I lack prophetic powers, and I am not clairvoyant.
Okay.
So I cannot predict the future. But let justice prevail. That's the bottom line. There can be no peace without justice. So they can rule either way, but if it's unjust, let them prepare for what might happen. We can't predict what will happen, but Nigerians have suffered so much, and the suffering got compounded with has been much compounded under the Tinubu administration. And there are a limit to where you can push people, and they might snap, they might react. Secondly, military coup is a direct consequence of a failure of the civilian leadership. So if the civilian leadership continues to fail us, let them be acutely aware that military coup might be looming in the horizon. There are limits to what they can do, and the country will remain not rattled.
Okay. All right, we still have more information concerning the fact that the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, and the former governor of the same state, Senator Rochas Okorocha, were observed entering the presidential villa in Abuja on Thursday evening. They were actually accompanied by the national chairman of the APC, Abdullahi Ganduje, and shortly after their arrival, the quartet, which also included the governor of Lagos, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, they departed from the liver. The Bola Tinubu was reported to have left his office by the time they arrived. The purpose of their visit remains undisclosed, however, though it may relate to past tensions between Uzodinma and Okorocha, who previously served as the governor of Imo State from 2011 to 2019. The question, why I'm asking this question is, considering the situation in the Southeast, Hope Uzodinma is currently one of the leading governors of the All Progressives Congress, almost like the class captain or the prefect. In November 11, precisely sometime in November, I'm not very certain of the date yet, a governorship elections will be taking place in Imo State. Uzodinma has picked up a running mate who is a female, which a couple of people thought it was a strategy to just silence that deputy and not have someone who could oppose him running the second time. And then, a lot of critics have also complained about the situation in the Southeast security-wise. And they're saying that Uzodinma is not supposed to run again the second time, considering how he came on board the first time. What's your take on it before we wrap up the news?
Well, I guess every Nigerian has the right to vote and be voted for. So if Uzodinma chooses to run, that's his prerogative.
Okay.
It's for the people to reject him. The thing is for our elections to be credible. Right. Our elections to be fair and to be free. Once our elections are credible, fair and free, then the people will have the right to vote in or to vote out any politician.
Now, the thing at the tribunal is, do you think Nigerians actually want a certain person of their choice to be named as a due winner of the election, or they actually want a proper due diligence on measures, punitive measures being carried out, or punitive measures being disclosed, certain ways through which the elections were conducted? Because a couple of we do vox pops where we get feelers of what people think, and people say we don't care who eventually the tribunal declares as the winner. We just want the tribunal to state out the anomalies, especially from the aspect of INEC, that these are the areas where they did wrong, and these were the areas where they allowed speculation and distrust in the institution, that is meant to be transparent and objective. So do you think that is basically the major agreement of the populace concerning whatever decision that comes from the Election Petition Tribunal?
I don't think you can separate the two issues, because if there were anomalies, if there were aberrations in the election, then the outcome of the election must have been faulty. And it's for the tribunal to rectify the faultiness of the election. We know who won the election. We know that there was power grab. The present president in a video was encouraging electoral criminality when he said, grab it, snatch it, run with it. And that was what his supporters did. And that influenced the outcome. The victory, in quote, was not real. It's some kind of a fiendish victory. So people want the leader of the stolen mandate to be returned to the owner of the mandate. So you cannot say it's fair. You can only say it's not fair, it's not free, it's not credible, and then say that the winner is the right winner. If it's not fair, it's not credible, it's not free, that means the mandate was stolen. And all Nigerians are saying, return the stolen mandate to the legitimate owner of the mandate.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tochukwu, for coming on the World News at 12. I sincerely do appreciate your intellectual contribution on the issues that we discussed this afternoon. To wrap up the World News at 12, here again are the top stories. Femi Fonana criticizes 5 billion naira fuel subsidy removal palliatives as diversionary. Dr. Mark Shehu discloses that Tinubu's cabinet is an Oduduwa republic. Uzodimma Okorocha visits President Tinubu in Aso Rock, and ECOWAS forced to confront Niger junta if talks fail. That's a wrap on the World News at 12. My name is Esther